Welcome to B2B Sales Trends, the podcast dedicated to sales leaders in the B2B space, where we share conversations about innovative and successful sales transformations to keep you up to date on the latest trends. This podcast is brought to you by Global Performance Group.
Welcome you to another fabulous episode of the B2B Sales Trends podcast, my lovely people. The show that brings you hacks, tips, tricks, thought leadership for B2B selling. My name is Harry Kendlbacher, and today's I have with me David Winneberger. David is the VP, Head of Global Sales Customer Service at Siemens Healthineers. Welcome to the B2B Sales Trends podcast, David.
Thanks for having me, Harry.
Now, we are close neighbors, close-ish neighbors. I'm in Salzburg, Austria. David is just across the border, so we decided to do this podcast today in German. No, of course, we're only kidding. David, take it away and give us a quick introduction about yourself.
Okay, I'm not going to make it in German then, yeah.
Oh.
So I'm David. Yeah, so people who know me call me David. I'm very passionate about advancing healthcare and very, very proud to work in a field that really drives progress in the field of medical technology, towards advanced healthcare for every single patient, independent of where they are on our lovely planet. I have a background in industry, some experience in hospital work, as well as private practice. And I lead teams to achieve ambitious goals. Whenever it's business or on the soccer field or football field, where I coach, for example, a local football team, I believe that the power of teamwork, strategy, and motivation are key. Like in sports, I think the success in healthcare, especially in sales, means inspiring individuals to work together, aim high, and push boundaries to achieve something which is greater.
Love it. Love it. Thank you for that kind introduction, David. Let's talk a bit about the idea of that product-heavy conversation that a lot of salespeople still are doing, and how they can really be shifting to a value selling approach and to create value throughout their conversations. Because salespeople naturally default to talking about what they know is best, what they feel most comfortable with, and that's typically the product. But that doesn't win deals these days because buyers are more and more better informed. What do you think are the biggest barriers to moving from a product-first mindset that so many people have to a value-driven sales approach?
Well, I can only recap what you said. I think sales teams in our days are very, very often rely on these product-heavy conversations because they feel super familiar. They have done this for the last, sometimes even decades, and it's for them a comfortable territory. So it's basically their home turf. Now, if we talk about value-based or value-based selling, I think it's first of all very crucial to train the teams to understand how to articulate the broader business impact of my or our solution or their solution. When it comes to barriers, I think first of all, it's the sales culture itself, which prioritization of short-term wins is very often built over long-term value or targets. To overcome this, I would usually say that you need to discuss initiatives, incentive schemes that takes away the focus of that mindset of simple looking at short-term wins or targets, which you then get through, for example, ongoing coaching. Sharing successes, but not only from an headquarter or top-down perspective, but especially within their peers. So using them as a role model to then really show the benefits of value-driven approaches.
And of course, these days, there is a lot of different tools. There's a lot of digital pieces coming into our sales conversations. Data intelligence is there to enhance, sort of customer engagement and so forth. And it's a really crowded market in this, and AI and this and that, and everybody's trying to figure out what works for them. And so, with these digital channels and its data insights are playing a bigger and bigger role, how these salespeople, sales teams interact with customers. How are you seeing these tools change the way salespeople work?
Well, I think overall we are in the age that we need to leverage not only the digital tools, but especially the data and the data analytics, which is behind. Yeah, right. Using it for making every interaction, I like to say it, the in-person touch points, more tailored, especially towards the customer needs. So everything we know about needs from a more general perspective, but then especially towards their personal preferences, which is, I think, key. And I think the world which we are in from a pure consumer perspective, if I inform myself about a certain topic on blogs or just in the internet before I make my buying decision, is becoming an even greater thing in B2B. I'm a fan of maybe a bit of a radical statement, that I don't see a big difference between B2B and B2C. The only difference is that you have more stakeholders which you need to address. Convinced about your solution. But basically, should be all backed up on data and make it much easier for the salespeople to actually focus on what matters most.
Interesting. And your specific role is obviously for customer service and service engineers and sales engineers. Now, we discussed that sales engineers, service engineers really need to play a bigger role in not just identifying these sales opportunities and servicing people, but really identifying and generating new needs in the mind of the customer. Now, at Siemens Healthineers, I know you're looking for different ways to bring these technical teams closer to the sales process. What, in your opinion, is the real opportunity here when you talk about these roles and directly related to the sales process? And how are you working to shift this perception also in the salespeople, but also in the sales process or the customers in this case?
Well, I think if we take the group of service engineers or field service engineers as an example, I think this is the most undervalued sales force which is actually existing. And I tell you why, at least from my perspective. Because they are the ones who might be the face to the customer of the company. In many cases, and you can now say unfortunately or fortunately, when something is broken. Right. Nevertheless, if they are around because it's a big account and they know who to talk to, they know the technicians, they know the physicians, they know the biomed department. So they are an integral part of feeling the pulse of an account. Not only because of how is the technology doing, how are your devices performing, but what's overall. It's very easy that on one of the yard, on a clinical yard, that someone is just saying, "Hey, we are looking for a new room to equip a new system." While the account executive can't, which is from a pure, if we talk about cost perspective, the most expensive piece in the sales process. Highly qualified salespeople, so you don't want to let them run around and see maybe looking for an opportunity. You want to target them very specifically, from a utilization perspective, but especially from a funnel development perspective. And they should close the deals. So service engineers, as well as for us, clinical application specialists who are talking the language of the customer, understanding what they need, what they want, and do pulse checks as said, are for me the ones which need to get much closer. And now comes, of course, the transformation aspect, or the not even digital, but just from a pure characteristics of this role of this people. They are usually very techy.
Right.
Yeah. Sales skills perspective wise, might not be the greatest capabilities they have. Right. At least not in a traditional way. Yeah, so therefore, of course, you need to overcome that and then bring internally the two metrics of the techie fixing people, engineering people towards the sales people, talking the same language and handing over leads which are hot, which have a certain maturity, to make sure that these are then properly handled by the account executive, as an example, or product specialist.
Interesting. When you say their typical behaviors and the typical skill obviously doesn't have that sales touch that we want them to have, describe a little bit the sales skills, or those skills, should I say, that you envision those people having or need to have to move forward in those conversations effectively.
Yeah, I would say there are many. Yeah, like first of all, when we talk about sales skills, is getting that sense of hungry hunting for deals. Mm-hmm. Yeah? But not from a sales incentive perspective, but rather from a benefit for the customer perspective. Yeah?
Right.
Which can be, there is a system which needs to be replaced versus which might need to be replaced. Yeah, but getting this feeling of where is the urgency of a deal, of a lead. Now, I think are the ones which are most critical, which they need to understand, because from a classical behavior perspective, what they want is they want to fix. Yeah. But then looking at what is especially in customer service, what is the margin you are having with that system, with that account, with that contract? Yeah, is it something which is positive, which you always want? But if it's negative, then they need to create and feel that, okay, this is a system which might be in favor of the customer, but for us as a company, it doesn't make sense to, or it would have a higher priority to actually replace it. Yeah. And that sense of getting that feeling is something which, of course, from a pure soft skill perspective as well, is something we as a pilot, for example, initiate to get them to a certain level to really use them as well as a lead generator.
Right. And it's so interesting. We've had a couple of episodes on service engineers, sales engineers, and there's actually a great book I can recommend to you. It's called Trust Your SE, Trust Your Sales Engineer. That was written by one of the guests on our podcast and released recently. And it's, the biggest issue is skill set is one thing, but with that also comes the mindset. And typically, these kind of roles are sort of trained to react to a customer, request, should I say. They're there, they have a very service-orientated mindset. So how do we shift them from reactive approach to a more proactive approach and really start digging deep on some of those issues so that they can really identify new opportunities in those existing relationships? Would you agree with that?
For sure. No, I think I have not read the book. Yeah, so maybe you hand it over when the next time we see us. No, or
it's not written by me. I'm featured in it though.
Okay, well, that's good. But recommendations are always good.
Yeah.
But I think overall, engineers and their contribution to the sales process, as said, I think is something which we have as well identified, especially when it comes to, again, from a very technical product, complex technical product, and then on the other hand, bridging that to customer business needs. Yeah.
Right.
If we talk about training programs, workshops for customers as well as for engineers, again, what helps them to understand that it's not only the helping a patient which is on the table or doing an image of a patient, but what stands behind? What's the reimbursement scheme? I think there is so much potential how that role of a service or sales engineer can actually grow over the time, where from a, again, traditional medtech company perspective, it's a lot about changing, having consultant skills, selling skills, developing these. I think is should be a crucial part of the role, the future role when it comes to service engineers.
Now you say should be. The question is it already?
Well, not everywhere. At least for us, it's something which we pilot. Alongside with having this more data-driven sales approach, really backed up, making us even more trusted partners with just not saying, you need another upsell in your contract or you need just a renewal, but backing that up for the conversation to enriching the in-person touch points, as mentioned earlier. And overall, I think I like that scheme that people say that you need to think outside of the box.
Right. Right.
But I'm a strong believer that thinking outside of the box is not enough. You need to act outside of the box. So you need to have a critical mass of people, again, people who are willing to learn, people are willing to change, people to willing to adapt, to try out new things and acting as role models, because this is what actually then makes the trick at the end of the day.
David, my final question with every podcast is the question that dives into the three top skills, the three top behaviors, the three top attributes that you think that successful client-facing people, maybe sales engineers or account managers, your pick, but the top three skills that client-facing people need to have and possess and execute in this environment that we're all in at the moment to be able to be top sellers in their space. What are those top three skills, in your opinion, that people need to possess?
It's not so easy to nail it down to three, but I would say my top one would be, or my top three. Firstly, I would say it's empathy. Understanding what customers want, what are their pain points from a business, but especially from a personal perspective. Because it's still, sales will always be a personal interaction. Might be digital, might be virtual, might be via the phone, via podcast or whatever, but or in person, but it will be always an underlying thing. So empathy would be number one. Second would be adaptability, being able to change strategies based on customer feedback, based on market trends, on market movements, as well as your solutions you're offering. So being adaptable on this one, making sure that you can change on the fly. I'm not such a big fan of talking agile, but at least being able to change and adapt.
Right.
And then lastly, I would name tech savviness. And tech savviness, not in the traditional way of I can explain my technical product, but more in utilizing digital tools to enhance engagement, to enhance efficiency, to enhance productivity. I think this is going to be the biggest change or the biggest skill successful salespeople will actually need. So empathy, adaptability, and tech savviness.
Lovely people, you've heard it from David. Those top three skills and behaviors that you need to engage with your customers and prospects differently in this tough environment, quite honestly, that's out there. David, thank you. I know our listeners are super grateful and appreciate your insights and thought leadership. So we appreciate your time. Thank you for your contribution.
Thanks for having me.
2 calls to action, my lovely people, which is go to the b2bsalestrends.com website to watch this episode again, share it with anybody or any other episodes that you may have missed. And happy selling. From now on, by the way, we will be releasing a weekly episode versus bi-weekly. We have a lot of demand for our thought leadership and our lovely guests sharing their insights and tips and tricks. So watch out for a weekly episode on the B2B Sales Trends podcast. Look after yourselves. Until soon. Bye-bye.